Hey, okay, so today's episode is about latency. As promised, we're going to cover latency and get you to understand it and how to control it. So let's talk about analog signals. Now, analog signals, they travel at the speed of light, okay? So the sound coming from an instrument going into a microphone, and from the microphone going into a mic preamp, and then from the mic preamp heading into an analog tape recorder, and then going through the analog tape recorder, and then heading back to the headphones of the performer. That speed of that is at the speed of light, and it is instantaneous, okay? So there is no latency in that. All right, a little correction here. Analog signals do not travel at the speed of light. I'm wrong about that, but they are instantaneous for all practical purposes. However, when it comes to digital audio, something has to happen called conversions, okay? And these conversions take time. What's happening is your interface has to convert analog signals into digital samples for your DAW, so your DAW can have those nice pretty waveforms that you see and that you can work with those waveforms. And then from the DAW, your interface has to convert those digital samples back into analog audio for you to hear coming out of your speakers. So while you're listening through your DAW, there are two conversions happening. Now, the length of this round trip of conversions is controlled in your audio preferences by the size of the buffer. The smaller the buffer, the faster the conversions occur. But the faster the conversions occur, the harder your computer has to work. So it's a balancing act of having your buffer set to a size to where it doesn't tax your computer too much. Now, if the buffer size is too high, it can affect your performance as far as the timing of your performance. And your timing will not be in sync with the other elements in the song. And as you lay track upon track with a buffer that's too high, what occurs is you end up with a bunch of tracks that are out of sync with each other, and it sounds very sloppy. It sounds like poor performance. Although you might be performing great, it's the interface and these calculations that are adjusting the timing, and it's not adjusting it in your favor. So let's see how that can occur and what the effect is. All right, so I put together a little session here, and I just got through recording 3 guitar parts and a bass part along with a drum loop, okay? Now, you see up here, it says 64 samples, and then we have 512 samples. So here is the little groove thing I did here. It's kind of a riff thing, and I figured a riff thing would be a good example of this. So here's what this is. Okay, there it is. 64 samples, everything's pretty tight. You know, I laid this down real fast, so, you know, this isn't the most amazing sounding thing in the world. So here on this 512 sample rate session, the first purple section here is at 64 samples, and the second section here is at 512. So essentially, if you see, this is the same thing here as here in this particular one, but this is at 512. So let's compare the two, huh? See what the difference is. Let's listen to 64 samples. Okay, now let's take a listen to 512. Now, I don't know if you can hear it, but that take is far less groovy than the first take. That 512 sample thing, it's not totally falling apart, but it is certainly not locking into anything. You can hear it fighting itself as I'm playing, because what I'm hearing while I'm playing is out of sync with what I'm playing. So it messes with your brain when you do that. I mean, take a listen to this area, just take a listen to this. Well, especially right there. I mean, that's just, it's loose, you know, but here, this one. See, that's all grooving. That's in a pocket, right? Whereas this is totally not. That's not good. Anyway, so that's what latency does to a performance of multiple tracks. All right, so we know we don't want to have a high buffer rate while we're recording because it destroys the feel of your song, and music makes people feel better because the music feels good. So if your buffer rate's too high and your music doesn't feel good, nobody's going to want to listen to it. All right, so there's two ways you can control the latency while you're recording, and the first one is to change your buffer size depending upon what you're doing. I've mentioned this earlier in a previous video. You need to have a smaller buffer while you're recording. You saw that the 64 samples was better than the 512 samples while I was recording just previous. And then the second way is to have an interface that allows you to listen to the output of the interface and not the output of your software. In other words, being able to directly monitor what you're playing while you're recording without listening to it through the software. This here's the small interface we've been using in several videos, a Behringer UMC202HD. In all the videos up till now, what I've been doing is recording through the software in order to show you latency and how it can affect your recording. This right here, this little button here says Direct Monitor. What this allows you to do is if you engage this button here, whatever's coming into the Behringer, no matter if it's a mic or a guitar or whatever it is, goes straight to the output. It doesn't go through any converters. It doesn't go through the software, so there is no latency. It's the speed of light. Therefore, you avoid the time that the interface takes to convert the analog into a digital signal. So the only drawback to this is this. The first input goes directly to the first output, which is going to your left speaker. Therefore, you will only hear whatever this sound is coming out of the left speaker. And that's true as well with the headphones. It will only come out of the left side of the headphones. It won't come out of the center. So that's the one little thing you have to put up with when it comes to direct monitor with this particular interface. Same thing with regard to second input goes directly to the second output, which goes to the right speaker. And you're only going to hear it coming out of the right side of your headphones. You gain zero latency, but the little minor thing you have to put up with is the fact that you're only going to hear it come out of one side. The interface I usually use is an Apollo interface made by Universal Audio. And one of the reasons I got it was because of the fact that I could directly monitor without listening through the software, therefore eliminating latency. It has a lot of other features that are totally awesome as well. This thing opened up a whole new ball game for me, so really happy I got this. But anyway, it does allow a direct monitor. All right, we were just looking at the Apollo interface, and I was telling you could do a direct monitor with it, and to give you an idea how that works is here we are in Studio One. Here's that little Behringer interface we were just talking about. Let's switch over to the Apollo. A little pop there, huh? Funzo. And now if we go to the song setup, we can see it's a lot more capable. But How does it do this direct monitoring thing with all these inputs and outputs? Well, let me give you an idea how that happens. That happens in another application. Universal Audio has their own application. It's called the console, and here it is. These are the channels, these are the inputs of the Apollo. You see that there's 8 channels here. These are analog inputs that the Apollo converts to digital audio. If you plug things into the Apollo, we plug in 2 or 3 or 4 microphones. When I unmute this, these go straight to the speakers, and I can pan them, I can put effects on them, I can put inserts, plugins on the stuff. But this way, I can hear what I want to record without going through the software, but it still shows up in the software. We go to Studio One. If we look here, you see that these are now Apollo inputs, since that's our interface. So while I am recording in Studio One, I'll be in record, but I won't monitor it. I won't have this lit up, because that way I'll hear it through the software, and I don't want to hear that. So I'm just going to record it, and it's coming from the Apollo interface. However, I am listening here in my speakers. So I get my mix together here while I'm performing. Then, of course, when I play back, I have to get the mix together here. I hope that's not confusing for you, but that's another way of avoiding latency with direct monitoring. If you have an interface that allows direct monitoring, they come in different varieties. Some are complex, some are very simple. The Apollo is a pretty complex one. The Behringer's a very simple one. And I'm sure there's interfaces in between, but those are the only 2 I have in the room, okay? Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea of how latency works, what it is, and how to manage it. In our next episode, we're going to lay down a lead guitar part on the Buffalo Springfield song we started a while back. This is the part that Neil Young played. It's that real cool tremolo part, if you're familiar with the song. Going to show you where to put the mic on the amplifier, how to get that microphone into the system, make it sound good, play around with the mix a little bit, show you how to punch in if you make a mistake, all sorts of wonderful things. You won't want to miss the episode. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe and continue watching the rest of the episodes here on the Home Studio for Beginners course at Record Mix Repeat. I'm your host, Rusty Smith, and thanks for watching.